Episode 1 of the Diplomat Season 2 begins with the horrifying sound of fire roaring. EMTs are at the scene, as Ronnie is alive, but not in a good way. Unfortunately, 2 others have also been injured and 1 is dead. Austin and Kate scramble to get answers, as it appears the car was rigged with an IED. We know that Ronnie is alive, at least for now, and Kate then receives a note confirming that Grove is dead. This means Hal and Stewart are still alive, based on the intel she's received. Hal is in a rough way though, given he's in surgery, and it's unknown right now what state he'll be in after. Austin speaks to Kate and explains that the Tory party have been receiving donations from Russian sources. The key here may well be Merritt Grove, especially if these connections go back to Linkoff. Her theory is that Linkoff put together the attack, but the Prime Minister hired him, not the Kremlin. Kate is rattled, believing that the British are not to be trusted. She's convinced that the calls are coming from inside the house, and tells Idra Park, the CIA chief, of her concerns. The fact that the Americans were the ones hurt the most from this bomb certainly backs up her theory. Through all of this, the French intelligence believe that the British are going to kill Roman Linkoff. Kate is paranoid, and eventually tasks Idra with investigating Prime Minister Nicol Trowbridge. Unfortunately, that's easier said than done, but the pair use a whiteboard to disguise their chatter for fear of the room being bugged. As for the Prime Minister, he gathers intel on the situation, believing that the bombing in Notting Hill is an isolated incident and not linked to the bigger picture. He's undermined by his wife, who's clearly the dominant one here, and encourages him to call a Cobra meeting. Trowbridge does just that. Kate heads to the hospital, where Hal is in a rough way, but he survives another close call. Alone, Kate finds herself conflicted. This is the man she spent years with building a life, and despite everything falling apart and all the issues they've had, when he wakes up and Kate sees his cuts, she breaks down. It's a small moment of vulnerability, and helps her character, until we get back to the situation at hand. The Cobra meeting goes ahead and Trowbridge is convinced that the Russians are responsible. However, new evidence comes to light that the car bomb was made in Britain. Furthermore, nobody seems to be able to get through to Roylin either. The Prime Minister is desperate to find them, throwing doubts over Kate's initial thinking that he's behind the attacks. However, she isn't entirely convinced that he's not either. Things are getting tense and both Kate and Idra can sense as much here. Idra turns her attention to Hal and interrogates him in hospital. After getting the lowdown on what he remembers and how he's pointing fingers at the Foreign Secretary, we also learn that Stewart's surgery has gone well. He remembers everything, although he thinks the explosion was a car crash, so he has distorted memories here. Unfortunately, Ronnie doesn't make it. Despite seeing her earlier in the episode, she passes away, and unfortunately, this only raised the tensions between the US and UK. Kate rings the US Secretary of State Miguel Gainan to break the news. The pair manage to solve some of their ill will toward one another in the face of this tragedy, but Kate feels the guilt and makes the difficult call to tell her family the bad news. Stewart has information that could change everything. He believes Ronnie wasn't anywhere near the bomb and was actually inside the restaurant when it went off. Whether it's just his memory distorting or actually factual, it breaks him when he finds out Ronnie is dead. A call comes in for Kate though, from someone called Legendre Armstrong. But she's apparently been dead for 15 years. It turns out the person on the other end of the line is none other than Roylin. Alas, the plot thickens. The Diplomat is back and the first episode wastes little time diving right into the political machinations over what's taken place. The bombing has not killed one person but instead 2, and seeing Kate have to make the difficult phone call is certainly a heart-wrenching moment. Similarly, there are segments here that really help develop Kate's character, giving her little moments of vulnerability like hugging Hal in the hospital or breaking down in frustration and ripping her dress in the bathroom. These little touches help to remind us that this is a real person dealing with tremendous stress. But the big question here stems from exactly who's responsible for the bombings. It's clear that there's more going on here than we're being led to believe, and it could well be that there's a bigger conspiracy to sever the ties between the US and the UK. For now though, we'll have to wait and see where this one goes next.